Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Flashback, Ben and Jack, preparing to leave for Ramadi. Well, we were between the proverbial rock and a hard place. Captain M pulled a fast one with the MRI technicians to hide the injury to Jack's back. Jack was sure his back was screwed, and if Jack's injury was exposed, he would most likely receive a medical discharge which wouldn't give him enough money to provide for himself and Masha. I unstrapped Jack and began to help him off the gurney as Captain M said, "I'm going to go and arrange for our transportation to Ramadi. You two make sure you're ready when I get back." I requested, "Captain, permission to get some medical supplies for my combat medical kit." He glared at me and demanded, "You aren't a medic, so what the hell do you need to get?" I smiled at him and lied. "I wanted to requisition more suture kits because you never know when you're going to get cut." Jack added a huge amount of bullshit that I wasn't sure the captain would swallow. "Yeah, Ben does a damn fine job stitching people up. Hell, he took damn good care of the Spetsnaz troops in Russia when they played Mumbly Peg." I was surprised as hell when the captain answered, "I think I remember hearing something about that." "Yeah, go for it, but don't take too long." The captain left. Jack looked at me and bragged. I smiled at Ben and bragged, baffled his, but with bullshit. Ben scolded, "Hell, Jack, I didn't think he would go for that lie." Jack gave me a self-satisfied smile, blew on his fist, wiped it on his chest, and stated, "That's because, my boy, you didn't know that was one of the stories I told the Marines about our time in Russia." I knew it would get back to the captain. "So what the hell are you really doing?" Ben looked at me in wonder and answered, "I'm going to trade my Pappy Van Winkle for some pain pills to take care of your back." I asked, "Are you sure you can make that trade?" Ben grinned at me and said, "Hell yes I am. It's hard as hell to get Pappy Van Winkle in the States, so over here it will be like gold to anyone who knows bourbon." I was sad to see such great bourbon go, but was thankful Ben was going to use it to help me. Flashback, Captain M, arranging transportation to Ramadi. I had made it back to the MRI suite just in the nick of time. The MRI technician was about to bump Sergeant Reynolds' MRI up to the radiologist because the old fart had herniated discs in his lower back. If that happened, they would have given the old fart medical discharge. The bony bitch would have reported it to the old man, and I would have been blamed for it and sent back to Thule. I knew I should have ordered one of the SGTS to arrange for the travel to Ramadi, but I wanted to get the hell out of the hospital sooner rather than later, and I figured either one of the SGTS would do something to screw up the travel plans. Yeah, sometimes if you wanted things done right, even if you are an officer, you did it yourself. I walked into the travel office, noticed they were busy as hell, but being the only officer in the room, I walked up to the head of the line, looked down at the sergeant sitting at the desk and ordered, "Is that how you greet an officer?" "2 SGTS, and I need to get immediate transportation to Ramadi." He jumped to his feet, stood at attention, saluted, and apologized. "Sorry, sir. We don't get many officers in here." I looked at his name and played my trump card, Sergeant Thompson. "I was talking with Colonel Jones earlier today, and I think he might be interested to know how I've been treated." I could see the beads of sweat begin to form on his forehead while I continued. "However, if you get me transportation in the next few hours, I will be gone and can't have that conversation with him." Sergeant Thompson requested, "Sir, might I sit down to find you transportation to Ramadi?" I gave him permission. He sat down and began to search through his schedules like his life depended on it, which it practically did. He had a pained look on his face when he looked up at me and said, "Sir, because of the action in Ramadi, the only thing we have headed there for the next 3 days are supply convoys. If I pulled some strings, I could get you and the 2 SGTS transported in an additional Humvee as a support vehicle." I couldn't believe they didn't have any choppers headed toward Ramadi, so I countered, "Sergeant Thompson, are you sure there are no choppers headed to Ramadi?" He looked exasperated and answered, "Sir, the only choppers coming in and out of Ramadi would be medical evac choppers, and unfortunately, they are not coordinated through this office. You would need to talk to Colonel Jones to catch a flight on one of them." I knew I had tapped this REMF for all I could, and after my last talk with Colonel Jones, I sure as hell didn't want to talk to him again. I smiled at Sergeant Thompson and replied, "The extra Humvee will work as long as it's armored, and we have your best driver." He began to scramble and answered, "Yes, sir. You need to be at the motor pool at 1600. You will have our best driver. Do you need a gunner?" I remembered how well Sergeant Blaine did in the ambulance and said, "No, one of the SGTS is a hell of a gunner. Just make sure he has a Mod Deuce and as much ammo as we can carry." Then I remembered and continued, "Don't forget the hearing protectors for him." Sergeant Thompson practically stumbled over himself and replied, "Yes, sir. I will make sure all of you have hearing protectors." I thought for a moment about asking Sergeant Thompson why we would all need hearing protectors, but dismissed it and headed back to the 2 SGTS. Flashback, Jack and Ben, preparing to leave for Ramadi. Ben left with the that's right, 3 bottles of Pappy Van Winkle out of his foot locker concealed in a plastic bag. I was pissed as hell about the captain things up like this. I began to move and grimace some, so the other Marines from the flight who were still waiting for their MRIs asked, "Jack, what the hell is wrong with you? You still look like you're in pain. What the hell are they going to do for you?" I put on a sorry face and answered, "I sure as hell hope none of you experience what I've experienced." Somehow Captain M talked the MRI technician into changing my results. Yeah, my back is seriously screwed up, but the MRI technician released me back into full duty. One of the Marines asked, "Do you want me to kill the scumsuckers for you?" I briefly considered it. If Captain M was gone and the MRI technician was gone, things would. No, then I would get a medical discharge in Masha and I would be totally screwed. I said, with just a little deception, "Thanks guys for the support, but remember my Russian wife Masha that I told all of you about? Well, if the old man knew about my back, then he would force me into a medical discharge, and if that happened, I wouldn't have enough money to support the 2 and soon to be 3 of us. No, with Ben's help I'm going to suck this up because pain is fear leaving the body." That elicited a chorus of hurrahs from the Marines. Ben returned and had a hell of a big plastic bag with him. I was shocked at the trade I made for the 3 bottles of Pappy Van Winkle. Hell, if I had known what it was worth in this country, I would have brought a whole damn suitcase full of Pappy. Jack and I could have walked out of here owning the whole damn country. Jack saw me and quietly asked, "It looks like you had some luck?" I smiled at him and said, "Hell yeah, you aren't going to have to worry about medicine for your back while we're here." Then I laughed and continued, "Hell, Jack, they got in a bidding war for the Pappy." He laughed and said, "Well, how about giving me something now because I feel like shit?" I reached into the bag, pulled out an OxyContin and a muscle relaxer, handed them to him and cautioned, "These might kick your butt." Jack laughed and said, "I have taken the best, and I doubt I will even feel it." He popped the pills into his mouth and swallowed them without water. I began to hide the hell out of the other narcotics in our foot lockers. The last thing I needed was for the captain to find these narcotics. Speak of the devil, he walked up right as I finished. Flashback, Captain M, heading to the motor pool. When I arrived back at the MRI room, the other Marines who waited for their MRIs glared at me, so I figured something had happened while I was gone, but I didn't need to deal with their bullshit. What I did need to do was get our shit to the motor pool, get it loaded into the Humvee, and then leave with the convoy. I ordered, "We need to haul our butts to the motor pool. We're taking a Humvee to Ramadi at 1600. Sergeant Reynolds complained, "What? You couldn't get a chopper?" I went to get in Sergeant Reynolds' face when Sergeant Blaine stepped in between us, shuffled Sergeant Reynolds to the side, and apologized. "Sorry, sir, for Jack. They gave him some more pain medication, and he's not himself." I observed the other Marines. If looks could kill, I'd be dead already, so I decided to forego another physical conflict with Sergeant Blaine. Sergeant Blaine began to stack our footlockers on the gurney, set his rifle case on top, and we headed toward the motor pool. Flashback, Masha, childcare. I made sure my house was spotless. Not that it wasn't already clean, but I wanted a comfortable place to take care of Louise's baby. Because I was not sure of the age of her baby, I also made sure to child-proof the house by putting all the cleaners and dangerous things in one of the high cabinets in the kitchen. I awakened extra early, did my exercises and yoga stretches, and had a light breakfast. I then cleaned up and dressed in a nice pantsuit for today. Then I began to anxiously wait for Louise. Slightly before 6, she drove up to my house in a vehicle which looked worse than many of the vehicles in Russia. It smoked, the doors rattled, and it made a terrible noise. I walked to the front door, opened it, and waved. Louise waved back, exited the car, went to the back doors, opened them, and withdrew the most beautiful baby girl out of a car seat. I walked to the car and said, "She is so beautiful. What is her name?" Louise smiled and agreed. "Yes, she is beautiful, and her name is Linda." I continued, "May I help you with anything?" Louise asked, "That would be great. Could you bring the big bag off the back seat, since it's full of baby food and diapers?" "Oh, and I brought her stroller just in case you would like to take her for a walk." I took the bag off the back seat, which seemed to contain too much for just one day. However, I didn't question Louise about it. I asked, "Where is the stroller?" Louise answered, "I will get it out of the trunk, but let's get Linda into the house first." We walked into the house and Louise saw the cabinet full of my Russian treasures and remarked, "Wow, you have a great house. Are all those plates from Russia?" I blushed slightly and replied, "Yes, I brought them with me when I moved here." I showed her the rest of the house. We went into the spare bedroom and I stated, "And this will be Linda's room. I am sorry I do not have a baby bed for her, but if she continues to come here, I will purchase one for her." Louise looked at a few things I had scattered around the room and questioned, "Where did you get the dolls and toys?" I smiled and answered, "A few of them were mine when I was a little girl in Russia, but I found a store on the way home from the market yesterday and purchased the rest for her to play with. Louise kissed Linda, handed her to me, and said, "Feel free to call me if you have any problems at all." I walked Louise to the front door, helped Linda wave goodbye to Louise, and then I was alone with Linda. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, trying to solve a huge problem. Before I went to sleep last night, I searched like crazy for Mother's hidden stash of narcotics she was using against us, but was surprised when I didn't find them in any of her normal hiding places. Rats. She must have come up with some new hiding places. Early the next morning, I was having a great dream about Ben. He was just getting ready to. My door was thrown open and Mother yelled, "Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's time to weigh you." I jumped about 10 feet into the air and complained, "Mother, one of these days I'm going to die of a heart attack when you startle me like that." Mother replied, "Jennifer, I doubt that. Now come on and stop stalling." I climbed out of my nice warm bed, marched into the bathroom with Mother following, and I complained, "Mother, I need to use the toilet first." She stepped outside of the bathroom. I closed the door and did my morning business. The minute I flushed, Mother came in and demanded, "Okay, my ballerina, get on the scale to see how much you weigh today." I sleepily stepped on the scale. Mother shrieked and scared the heck out of me. "Jennifer, look at all the weight you've gained. We need to put you on a serious diet." I grumpily answered, "Okay, Mother, but first I'm going back to sleep." Mother countered, "Oh no, you're not, young lady. Here, put this on and dance until you lose all the weight you've gained." She handed me one of those crazy plastic workout suits which are supposed to make you sweat. I asked, "Well, will you at least leave the room while I change?" Mother laughed, "No, I will not. I want to see where my ballerina put on all those extra pounds." It was embarrassing changing in front of Mother, but there was no way to convince her differently. I asked, "May I have some coffee and breakfast first?" Mother laughed, "Coffee, yes. But because of your weight gain, you're only getting a hard-boiled egg for breakfast, and then only if you've lost the weight you already gained." I never dreamed how bad things were going to be, but then things got even worse. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. Chow Mein continued to annoy me, and I decided it was time to see what some of the blue pills would do to her. They always gave me the blue pills at night before bedtime. I took 2 of them, mixed them into her food, and served them to her. She gobbled up her food, then went to her litter box, and I was shocked when she fell asleep while using the litter box. The blue pills might be the needed salvation from Chow Mein. With her asleep, I could work without her becoming an annoyance. Flashback, Ira and Mira, back in Kazakhstan. I formulated a superior plan, looked at my sister Mira and elucidated, "Mira, when this pullet conveyance halts, we are going to implement my plan. We will forcibly acquire the conveyance of pullets and use it to render our escape." Mira questioned, "Ira, how do you propose we forcibly procure the conveyance of pullets?" I smiled and answered, "The operators are merely males, so we will feign interest in them. When they are sufficiently distracted, we will terminate both of them." Mira continued her questions, "And which one of us will operate this conveyance of pullets?" I answered, "You or me, it matters not. The goal is to vacate the area for a slight passage of time and then return." Mira blinked and questioned, "Return? For what purpose?" I menacingly grinned and supplied a one-word answer, "Retribution." Flashback, Todd, on the mission. It was cold as hell at this altitude since this was a high-altitude, high-opening jump. That's why I had the oxygen. My chute popped open after a short free fall of 30 seconds. I looked at the GPS unit strapped to my chest and began the long-as-hell glide toward the landing zone. As I crossed into hostile territory, the GPS beeped a warning. Now there was no going back. Present, Jack, Destiny, Glenn, and Hammer, solving a problem. As we approached the clearing where the bodies were, we hear a hell of an argument between Glenn and Hammer. They are making so much noise they can't hear us as we approach. "I'm tellin', ye Glenn th goddamn bears took th bodies. We need to hunt th scumsuckers dune and kill them." Glenn replies, "You are ye a bampot? Th bears woodn't tack th bodies." Hammer answers, "And who th heal day ye can they did me? We are almost to them." And Glenn makes sense when he answers, "'Cause feckin' bears don't use tasers. While I tried to stop ye, some law dune dauber got th jump on bath us." Destiny bravely jumps into the fray. Glenn is correct. Bears did not take the bodies. I have to bite my tongue to keep from laughing because Glenn and Hammer must have jumped about 10 feet straight in the air. Hammer counters, "Who in tich heel day ye can at tich damn bears didn't attack tich bodies?" Destiny laughs and answers, "Because I asked them, that's why." And Glenn is correct. Bears don't use tasers, and from the taser confetti, a non-firearm version of the taser was developed, allowing it to bypass federal and state laws that only apply to firearms, while a tracking system, the Anti-Felon Identification or AFID system, was created. This enables the taser to disperse confetti with serial numbers when it is fired and links a specific taser to the scene where it is used. On the ground, it's obvious that 2 tasers were fired at you almost simultaneously. I provide information. Guys, this is Destiny, and she's here to help us track the person or persons who took the bodies. Hammer, who is still irate, complains, "Fa to heal you are ye saying you re talking te bears ye main be a bampot." Destiny laughs, points behind Glenn and Hammer, and counters, "Well, here comes one of the bears right now, perhaps you would like to ask him." Hammer spins around, begins to reach for his claymore, while Destiny cautions, "I don't think he will like it if you draw your sword on him." I add a confirmation. That's right. Look at what happened to Evelyn and Megan. Destiny shocks all of us when she walks between Glenn and Hammer, goes right up to the bear, and begins to scratch him behind the ears. He moves his head to just the right spot, because he obviously loves it. Destiny orders, "Please leave this area because you are scaring the men." The bear snuffs a few times, growls at Hammer, turns around, and heads back into the woods. Hammer challenges, "I can track better than ye why a body yak closed." Destiny points to the ground and complains, "Then why haven't you done that?" "Oh, I understand. You were too busy fighting and destroying many of the clues. Now stand still and don't disrupt any more of the area." I reiterate, "She's right. Now stand still and let her do her job." We observe as Destiny first picks up some of the taser confetti and explains, "This might help identify who took the bodies." Then she begins to circle the area carefully, placing each step. She stops a couple of times, gets down on her knees and looks at things, gets back up and continues walking. The circles get larger until she finally gets down on her knees, then stands back up, looks at us, points and says, "The man who took the bodies came from that direction." She points in another direction and adds, "And he left in that direction carrying both of the bodies over his shoulders. He was wearing military-style boots and had Megan on his left shoulder and Evelyn on his right shoulder." Hammer laughs and attempts to insult Destiny. "Who in teach, bloody heel day ye cannot? You re Sherlock feckin' Holmes." Destiny laughs and declares, "That's right. I'm better than Sherlock Holmes because he was merely a fictional character. All the clues are right here if you just look. The boot prints show the right print is deeper than the left, which means he carried the heavier Evelyn on that shoulder." I've heard all I need to hear, so I order, "Well, I'm satisfied. So are we going to stand around and beat our gums all day long, or are we going to go find the bodies?" Destiny volunteers with a taunt, "I will come with you so you don't get lost or attacked by one of the body-eating bears." Glenn laughs and Hammer mutters under his breath as we follow Destiny. Present, Stacy and Samantha, heading to the cabin on the Truth Network private jet. I look at Samantha and reveal Bill's idea. "Sam." Bill says the body of Megan had been mutilated almost beyond belief. Samantha's eyes grow larger and she asks, "Stacy, who would do something like that to a body?" I respond, "Bill guesses it was probably Hammer, but it might have been Glenn in retaliation for getting Evelyn out of the mental hospital and then getting her killed." Bill says there are laws against defacing bodies and suggests we turn the bodies over to the authorities for possible prosecution. Samantha blinks her eyes and asks, "Stacy, are you telling me you would put Jennifer's father in prison?" I explain, "Sam, that's the dilemma I find myself in. I can't give the bodies to the authorities without causing problems for me, and even though I don't like Jennifer." Sam giggles and interrupts, "Don't like her? I would say you hate her." I reply, "Okay, you're probably right. I do hate the bitch for taking Ben. But I don't want to do anything which would hurt Ben, and I don't want it to appear that I'm being petty about his wedding. When Ben's marriage fails, I want it to fail of its own accord, not because of something I did. I just want to be there to help him pick up the pieces." Samantha smiles at me and comes up with a great plan. Present, Liz and Bernie, heading back to the destroyed cabin. I look at Bernie and suggest, "How about I change out of this outfit, and we catch a flight back to the cabin?" Bernie asks, "Well, just where are we supposed to stay?" Gretchen walks up with a tablet and responds, "Hey guys, I was kibitzing on your conversation, and I have it all taken care of. The tunnels survived just fine, so we can stay in them while the cabin gets rebuilt." I ask, "How do you know the tunnels survived?" She smiles at me and answers, "I borrowed this tablet from one of the photographers, used my mobile phone to connect to the network, and verified the status of the tunnels." You might also be pleased to know that Mira, Ira, Safia, and Alexei are already back, have entered the tunnels, and have taken up their old rooms. Now I have to get this tablet back to the photographer, and I'll meet you at the helicopter landing area. Bernie gives me a strange look, so I ask, "Honey, what's wrong?" He complains, "I hate living underground in the tunnels." I ask, "Well, do you have a better idea?" He surprises me with his answer. Present, Mira and Ira, on the hunt. As we change into our armor of body accoutrements, I surmise, we were wise to heed Safia's warning about storing our most essential gear within the subterranean tunnels. Ira concurs, "Yes, if we would have lost our wonderful katanas gifted to us by your Ben, they could have not been recompensed." I am struggling in applying my armor of body accoutrements, so Ira giggles at me and opines. Mira, it appears your dreaded fetus has eliminated the possibility for you to apply your armor of body accoutrements. I finally terminate the ill-rewarded effort, sit on a chair, and complain. My sister Ira, I am concerned about facing the terrible teenagers without the protections of my armor of body. Ira wisely suggests. I suggest to my concerned and ever-expanding sister, perhaps you could use some of the normal armor of body which is in the subterranean tunnels? While it is of inferior quality, it would afford some protection. And I would not harbor much concern since I doubt either of them will be with armament. Mira postulates for a moment, smiles and answers. Yes, you are correct on both counts. Other than Zarika's interest in Todd's. I interrupt, you mean my Todd? Mira rectifies her mistake. Sorry, sister. Other than Zarika's interest in your Todd's bow lessons undertaken so she could be adjacent to Alexei, neither of the terrible teenagers showed a predilection for weapons. Those encounters had skated out of my mind, but it brought up another question which I hesitated to promulgate. Mira notices and questions, my sister Ira, does a dog possess your tongue? Please utter your inquiry. I know of no way to ask other than to blurt. Mira, you do not suppose Alexei had coitus with Zarika? Mira presents a shocked facade and answers, it is possible they had coitus, they were alone many times. I make a decision, we must interrogate Alexei before we leave because he is very fertile and might have procreated with Zarika. Present, Safia and Alexei at the destroyed cabin. I am holding my Alexei's head in my lap and applying ice to his nose to reduce the swelling. While I didn't like what Ira did to his nose, I do have to say she straightened it very well. I only hope it heals without the telltale bump many broken noses produce. I move the ice to the areas under his eyes and say, Alexei, it appears you will also have 2 black eyes from your fight with your sister. It wasn't wise to attempt to hurt her. He dejectedly replies, oh great, now I will appear even worse. I kiss him on the cheek and advise, don't worry, I will still love you. Alexei notices some movement. Hey, did I just feel a kick by our baby? I smile at him. Get ready to answer when Mira and Ira dash into our room and Ira demands, Alexei, did you have coitus with Zarika? I glare at her and announce, Alexei is mine. I'm sure he didn't. Then I look down at Alexei and notice his face resembles a face of a child stealing cookies from a cookie jar, and I know that my Alexei did indeed have sex with that bitch. Alexei stammers, yeah. Then he totally lies. No, he didn't. Not what you would really call sex. I look at Mira and Ira and surprise them when I announce. Present, Jack, Destiny, Glenn, and Hammer, solving a problem. Destiny set a blistering pace which has all of us, especially the moderately drunk Hammer, wheezing. We understand the purpose behind the direction the scumsucker took when we reach a rocky outcropping. I look at Destiny and ask, can you track him here? She gives me a strange look and demands, yes I can. However, I need the 3 of you to turn around and face the other way. I will call you to follow me when we are off the rocks. I begin to complain, but one look from Destiny proves to me she's not kidding. I order Glenn and Hammer. Okay, you heard her. Let's turn around and take 5. Hammer, who is still wheezing, says, who a bit if we tack 10 and a wee nip I scotch? Thank God Glenn countermands the thought by ordering, Hammer, your drunkenness is slowing us up as Thor will be named Mayor Scotch for ye. Hammer sits on the ground, his back toward Destiny, and continues to wheeze. As Glenn and I face away from Destiny, I hear a noise, turn and look, but she's gone. Damn, she's fast. About 10 minutes later she comes back and announces, the bodies are gone. Glenn about loses it and cries, who in th feckin' heel did it happen? Destiny suggests, follow me and I will show you. We follow here across a huge expanse of rock and Destiny announces, there are no tracks leading off this rock. Then she takes us back to the middle of the rock, points at some scratches and says, I think a helicopter landed here and the bodies were loaded into it. I reply, thanks Destiny, I don't know how you were able to do all this. She smiles at me and says, there is one more thing. I do believe some horses were located here too, and possibly a bear. I don't see their hoof or paw prints, but I do seem to smell them. Hammer erupts, see I told ye it was teach a feckin' bear it took teach bodies. We've all had our fill of Hammer, and I almost applaud as Glenn hauls off and decks his butt. Hammer goes out like a light, and his head even bounces as it hits the rock. I look at Glenn and say, I do know Stacy Summers had horses and a bear here today. But she left with Samantha on the Truth Network jet, and what would she want with the bodies? Glenn looks at Destiny and says, thank you miss for your help. And I hae nae idea why she would want th bodies, but I day plan to fin it. Destiny also thanks Glenn. I also want to thank you for taking care of Hammer. The looks he kept giving me made me feel sick. Now if I'm not needed here anymore I have things to do. She waves goodbye and leaves while I look at Glenn and suggest, well if the bodies aren't here, I guess there's no reason for us to stay. Glenn looks at Hammer and says, "Thank you for your help, but ye need to get back to your falk. Don't fash yours. I will tack Korai Hammer until he wakes up, and we will laugh." As I left to find Masha and the rest of my family, I still pondered if Stacy did have the bodies taken. It was the only thing that made sense. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell. Ramadi. We arrived at the motor pool, loaded the Humvee with our gear. The captain handed me a set of hearing protectors and ordered, "Sergeant Blaine, you're our gunner." The driver walked up, saluted the captain, saw my hearing protectors and asked, "So you're the gunner? How many times have you done this before?" I began to answer when the captain interrupted. "Sergeant Blaine saved our butts in an ambulance convoy in Baghdad. He's a hell of a gunner." I answered, "The one time in Baghdad." I could tell by the expression on his face he wasn't happy about it, but he didn't say anything other than, "Well, climb in because it's going to be a hell of a ride." The last trip we lost 2 trucks and 1 Humvee. The captain took the passenger seat. Jack and I piled into the back, and we moved into the middle of the convoy. Jack leaned over and a bit too loudly stated, "You sure didn't seem to like the fact that you were going to be the gunner." The driver heard him and answered, "That's right. We might have stood a chance with someone that knew what the hell they were doing on the Madus, but with a rookie gunner our butt is grass." The captain finally did something good and chewed his butt. "Corporal, you can shut the hell up and keep your worthless opinions to yourself. Sergeant Blaine is more than qualified to man Madus." I jumped into the fray with both feet. "I'll tell you what, Corporal, if you don't like the way I handle the gun, then switch places with me." Just as I figured, the corporal didn't say a word because being a gunner was tantamount to participating in suicide. I smacked Jack on the knee and said, "Take care of yourself." Then I leaned over and whispered, "And don't screw up your back too much." I climbed up into the turret on top of the Humvee and prepared Madus. Things were going smoothly. I was just thinking of dropping back inside as we approached Abu Ghraib, and then all hell broke loose. The pills I got from Ben really kicked my butt, and I was damn near asleep when Ben started firing Madus. The driver shockingly demanded, "Hell, how did he see the scumsuckers before I did?" I yelled over the sound of the 50. "Hell, he practically has eyes in the back of his head. Give them hell, Ben." The driver stutters, "Wah? Wait, are you telling me my gunner is Ben? Even though I'm Army, I've heard of his exploits." The captain laughed and tried to steal some of the glory for himself. "That's right, and if you notice, Sergeant Blaine and I were the first ones to see the tangos, and his firing alerted the rest of the convoy." The captain was right about one thing. The convoy was fully awake, and every vehicle that had a gun was kicking butt and taking names. But most of them didn't know what the hell they were doing, so they were holding down the triggers and spitting a solid stream of bullets everywhere. What we called pray and spray in the Marines. If you prayed hard enough and held down the trigger, you just might accidentally hit something with the spray of bullets. In contrast, Ben would fire a quick burst of 3 to 5 rounds, hit his target, and then take aim at the next target. An RPG was headed toward the Humvee, but amazingly the driver spun the wheel. The Humvee leapt to the left, and the RPG passed harmlessly on the right-hand side. It left the normal telltale smoke trail right back to the scumsucker who fired it, and even with the juking of the Humvee, Ben didn't miss. Madus cut the scumsucker in 2. Then it happened. There was a huge explosion, and one of the trucks in the convoy in front of us was destroyed. The driver yelled, "Shit, that was an IED. I thought they had cleared this road." With the truck down, the scumsuckers began to run toward us like ants going after ice cream. Ben dropped his head inside and ordered, "Get us close to the damaged truck so we can see if anyone is still alive." The driver balked, began to complain, and the captain said, "Corporal, you received a direct order. Now do it." He floored the Humvee. We shot ahead and put ourselves between the disabled truck and the advancing scumsuckers. Ben was ripping them a new a-hole with the 50. I looked over and saw a driver as he tried to get out of the truck. I grabbed my rifle and yelled, "I'm going after the driver. Keep me covered." I popped open the back door as the captain popped open his door and ordered the driver, "Keep the Humvee moving, but your butt is mine if you leave us here." We both bailed out and ran toward the partially destroyed truck while Ben laid down hellacious cover fire. Damn, the shit really hit the fan. We were surrounded on all sides by a huge number of the scumsuckers. I saw them sneaking into position and opened up on them before anyone else saw them, which caused all hell to break loose. It reminded me of the time I shot a hornet's nest with my shotgun when I was a kid. We were doing great until a roadside bomb took out the semi-vehicle 2 ahead of us. Between the semi on its side and the huge blast crater in the road, they had stopped the convoy. We were sitting ducks. Jack and Captain M bailed out to rescue the driver of the truck. Our driver began to move, but the stupid scumsucker was taking us away from the attacking scumsuckers. I banged like hell on the roof of the Humvee, stuck my head inside, and ordered, "Where the hell are you going?" "I order you to attack the scumsuckers with this Humvee." He spun the wheel in response, and we headed right toward the approaching group of the scumsuckers while I began to rip them up with my deuce. I saw a couple of the scumsuckers with RPGs and made sure to waste their butts. I stuck my head back inside and ordered, "Do some big circles around the destroyed truck with the Humvee." He began his turn, and we no sooner got on the other side of the destroyed truck when I saw there were just as many scumsucker here as on the other side. I stuck my head back inside and ordered, "Floor this scumsucker." He did, and the Humvee jumped over the bumps and dead scumsuckers, which made aiming my deuce hell. I laughed like crazy because this reminded me of that old TV show Rat Patrol. We held the scumsuckers at bay, and finally a second Humvee showed up. They stopped, picked up the driver of the truck that Jack and Captain M freed, so I banged on the roof, stuck my head inside, and ordered, "Let's go pick up Jack and the captain." He headed back toward the destroyed truck, and then they came out of the sky like avenging angels. Yes, the choppers finally arrived. Flashback, Captain M, the trip to hell. Ramadi, son of a bitch. Things went well until we almost reached Abu Ghraib, then hell came calling our names. Sergeant Blaine saw the scumsuckers before I did and started ripping them a new a-hole, which alerted the other vehicles, and they all started firing, albeit ineffectively. Then it went from hell to something worse than hell when a semi was blown to shit in front of us, effectively stopping the convoy. We were the closest Humvee. The driver was still alive, so Sergeant Reynolds and I bailed out to try to save his butt. While we worked like hell to get him out of the destroyed semi, Sergeant Blaine kicked, but with the Humvee, and kept the scumsuckers from getting too close to us. Well, they still got a few hits on our body armor, but shit, that's what we're wearing it for. We finally got the driver and the interpreter free, then the Humvee came back for us, and I couldn't wait to get back inside. I jumped into the passenger seat and watched as some gunships finally showed up and took out the rest of the scumsuckers. The gunships even put a hellfire into the semi to destroy what was left of it and its cargo. The convoy worked its way around the semi and the crater, and we were rolling again. The driver remarked, "Sir, I was shocked you got out of the Humvee to help that semi-driver." I glared at him and set him straight. "Corporal, I might be a captain, but I am first a Marine and we never leave anyone behind." Then I asked, "So, is the rest of the trip going to be like this?" The corporal answered, "Probably so, sir. Once we're hit, it usually continues all the way to Ramadi. However, with the gunships flying cover, they might think twice about it." I hoped what the corporal said wasn't bullshit and the presence of the gunships would curtail any further scumsucker activity. Flashback, Jack and Ben, the trip to hell. Ramadi. With all the adrenaline coursing through my system, when Captain M and I were outside the Humvee helping the driver and the terp, my back felt pretty damn good. But now that I was back in the Humvee again, the adrenaline was gone, and it felt worse than ever. I popped open my foot locker, found some of the meds for which Ben had traded the Pappy Van Winkle, took one of them, and put the small bottle in one of my pockets. I hated like hell to take this shit, but I knew if I didn't control the pain, I couldn't do shit. Ben banged on the roof, stuck his head inside, and ordered. Things had calmed down some, and I knew it was time to follow the old rule. Reload when you have a chance, not when you have to. I banged on the roof of the Humvee, stuck my head inside, and yelled, "Hey Jack, grab a new box of ammo. I want to reload." Then I saw the pain on Jack's face and wished like hell I had not said anything. I made a decision. I dropped inside the Humvee, scooted to the back, grabbed 2 cans of ammo myself, and thought I was home free until the captain bitched, "Sergeant Blaine, why aren't you on the gun?" I quickly made up a hell of a lie, sir. I needed a drink of water and thought I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone by getting the drink and the ammo myself, because Sergeant Reynolds is still moving slowly from his back strain. The captain challenged my explanation and asked, "Couldn't you just take a sip from your pack?" Figuring I was already committed, I doubled down. "Yes, sir, I could, if my pack hadn't been hit during the firefight." Without drawing attention, I slid my knife from its sheath and sliced open the back of my pack. Turning slightly, I added, "Sir, you can see that I'm soaked." The captain gave a quick order. "Sergeant Reynolds, give your pack to Sergeant Blaine." I countered, "Sir, Jack needs the water more than I do, so please let him keep it." The captain waved his hand in dismissal and said, "Whatever, Sergeant Blaine, just know you can't be coming back in here for a drink every few minutes." I threw him a half salute, which was more than the scumsucker was worth, and headed back to the gun with the new can of ammo. Jack smiled at me on the way, which made me feel good. Shit. Once again, Ben saved my butt. My back hurt like a son of a bitch, and the last thing I wanted to do was muscle a heavy can of 50 cal ammo, which weighed about 30 pounds, to Ben. Hell, I could barely move as it was. I smiled as I noticed Ben took 2 cans of ammo with him. Well, that should keep him busy for a while. Then the captain asked about me, but I was sure he was only trying to yank my chain. "Sergeant Reynolds, how does your back feel?" I replied with a lie, "Sir. It's just stiff and should be fine in a few days." I detected the sarcasm in his voice as he replied, "I'm sure you're right, Sergeant. After all, The MRI didn't show any damage. By the way, why don't you hump a couple extra cans of ammo closer to Sergeant Blaine? Yeah, the scumsucker deserved to die for being such a shithead. But the pill had already kicked in some. I felt better, so I humped a couple cans of ammo below Ben. He looked down, saw me and mouthed, "What the hell?" I mouthed back, "Captain M." I had no sooner gotten seated again when the driver announced, "Grab onto your butts, we're entering Fallujah." And if you thought Abu Ghraib was bad, Fallujah is twice as bad. I sat back down, tightened my seatbelt, and thought about Masha. Unfortunately, we were headed into Fallujah, a place which was barely controlled by the coalition. I made sure Ma Deuce was ready and began to scan the rooftops and windows of the buildings. Yet it seemed like the scumsuckers had learned, probably from us, that attacking from a high position was a superior tactic. Sure enough, I saw someone poke a weapon out of a window, so I opened up on him. Once again, it only served to get all the scumsuckers fired up, and soon the Humvee was being peppered with rounds. Hell, a few even bounced off my body armor. I was glad I put 2 ceramic plates in my armor carrier today, because the outer plates were now gone. The whole convoy floored it, and we were flying through the streets like in the Fast and Furious video game. As I continued to sweep the roofs, windows, and even the streets, I wondered why the hell they didn't build a road around this city. Then there was an explosion, and flashback, Masha, childcare. The doorbell rang. I looked at my watch and wondered where all the time went today. Louise was already back from work. Yes, Linda and I had an amazing day. She was such a good little girl and was very smart, so I started teaching her some numbers and the alphabet. In English, of course, because I was not sure that Louise wanted Linda to be bilingual. I scooped up Linda, checked to make sure her diaper was clean, and ran to the front door and told Linda, "Mama is here." Linda got excited and began to coo and make other baby noises as we arrived at the front door. I checked to make sure it was Louise, opened the door, Louise walked in and asked, "Well, how was your day?" I smiled at Louise, handed Linda to her, and replied, "Why don't I relate our adventures over dinner?" Louise gave me a peculiar look and questioned, "Dinner? You took care of Linda all day and still had time to make dinner?" I answered, "Of course I did, and we also had a great lunch." We sat down for dinner. I told her all about our day, and Louise thanked me many times for the wonderful food. I didn't have the heart to tell her it wasn't my best, but knew I would do better tomorrow. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, trying to solve a huge problem. I was in pain, but it wasn't because Mother dang near killed me with ballet practice this morning. Heck, I only wished it was that. No, my stomach hurt so badly I thought I was going to pass out. I made the mistake of taking that cup of coffee Mother offered, and it came with one of the medications she was giving us. I pooped until I couldn't poop anymore, but it still felt like I needed to poop, and I was having terrible cramps. The only good thing was I lost a bunch of weight from the many trips to the bathroom, and Mother was happy, for today at least, with my weight. I decided to call Daddy. Perhaps talking to him would make me feel better. He answered the phone and I complained, "Daddy, I am so sick." He replied, "Don't tell me she got you too? I have spent more time in the bathroom than working today." I agreed. Yes, the same thing happened to me, and all I had was a cup of coffee. Daddy swore, "Shit, no wonder I'm sick. I had 2 cups." I practically pleaded, "Daddy, do you think you could find us a housekeeper cook soon? I'm not sure how much longer I can stand this." Daddy promised, "Yes, Jennifer, I will, because we are both in the same boat." I hung up the phone. Mother came into my room and announced, "Jennifer, I need to go to the store. Would you like to come?" I didn't lie. "No, Mother, I don't feel well, so I plan on resting." As soon as she left, I renewed my effort to find the narcotics she was using and flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. I had a great day without Chow Main's continual interference and worked most of the day on geometry. I was trying to develop a theorem for trisecting an angle. So far it worked on less than obtuse angles, but once the angle became obtuse, my theorem fell apart. In addition, 2 of the steps required axioms or theorems which hadn't been proven yet. I finally grew tired of this tedious work and went back to working on the cryptex, another solution which had continued to elude me. I was startled and dropped the cryptex when my cat let out a terrible yowl, followed by a noise that sounded like an explosion from her litter box. Within seconds, a toxic stench filled my small room, so overpowering that I could barely breathe. Then, she bolted out of the litter box and ran toward me, leaving a trail of wet, dripping feces behind her. Panicked, I dashed to the door, pounding on it and yelling, "Help me. She's sick again." The orderlies took far too long to respond. The moment they got the door open, I shot out of my room with my cat close on my heels. One of them swore, "What the hell is that smell?" I coughed and waved a hand in front of my face. As I said, "She's sick. She must have fallen asleep in her litter box, and when she woke up, well, you can see the result." The orderlies lunged to catch her, but she was too fast. She tore through the laboratory, leaving a wet, foul-smelling trail in her wake. Flashback, Ira and Mira, back in Kazakhstan. I oculated my sister Mira and announced, I tire of riding in this pullet wagon. It greatly offends my nether regions. Mira questioned, Ira, what are your plans? I answered, will you shelter my posterior? Mira smiled and replied, always, just as you have provided like protection. I climbed over the rail of the pullet wagon and applied my digital extremities to the lever of the portal designed to assist the operator to enter the occupant area of the pullet wagon. Whereupon I launched myself through the firmament in the window of the pullet wagon. My feet resoundingly connected with the operator's head, which immediately rendered him incapacitated. I notate that my sister Mira had followed my plan and the passenger was also rendered incapacitated. Then I realized the one great flaw in my plan as the pullet conveyance careened out of control. My sister Mira ordered, Ira, we must depart this pullet wagon before it traverses off the cliff. We both scrambled out of the occupant area of the pullet wagon and viewed the conveyance as it flew over the cliff and into the ether. Mira smiled at me and stated, Ira, we need to recover the accoutrements of the pullet wagon occupants. I concur, yes, they will be extremely bulky on us, but will be superior to the scraps of cloth which Kostia forced upon us. In addition, we might possibly find some expediently acquired field weapons. We began to work our way toward the destroyed pullet wagon. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I followed the GPS until I was close to the coordinates for the mission, but something didn't feel right to me. Call it intuition or call it experience, but I had a feeling I was heading into a trap. So I began my descent ensuring that my drop point would be many clicks short of the planned landing zone. I flared the chute, landed safely, and then began to conceal the chute. Once it was well hidden, I began to move toward the planned landing zone on foot. Present, Jack, Masha, and the children, leaving for the cabin. Well shit, with the bodies gone there's no sense in me hanging around here. I ponder as I wander back to the campsite on why the hell Stacy would want the bodies, but I draw a complete blank. I enter the campsite and see a guided missile in the form of my boy, Ivan, flying toward me. He gets close then launches into the air, but this time, he knocks me over backwards. I land on my butt, and it hurts the hell out of my back. I let out a moan and swear, damn my back. Ivan apologizes, sorry papa, I excited to see you and did not know you were not as strong as Destiny Wolf Lady. Then he clambers off and stands beside me. Masha runs over, recognizes the grimace on my face and asks, Jack, you appear injured? I force a smile and reply with a joke to alleviate her fears, don't worry, my back is just acting up. Damn, it's bad growing old because my back goes out more than we do. Masha scolds Ivan, just look what you have done to your papa. You should be ashamed of yourself. He looks down at the ground, begins to cry, kicks at the dirt, and says, sorry again papa, I not do this anymore. I look at Masha, begin to stand up, ruffle Ivan's hair and say, don't you dare stop running to me and greeting me. Just make sure next time that you don't knock me down. He goes into his bouncing movement from foot to foot and says, thank you papa, you are best. Did Destiny Wolf Lady help you find the things you were missing? Masha adds to Ivan's question, yes my husband. Did she find what was missing? I look at the two of them and answer, she was able to help us find what happened to the things, but unfortunately they were taken away from the area. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm ready to get back to the cabin. Masha notates and motions with her head. Well, Jack, I think you need to speak with Tom and Inga first to let them know what you discovered about the missing items. I smile at Masha and suggest, why don't you get everything ready to leave because this should only take a couple of minutes. Masha, I have a couple things to ask you on the flight back to the cabin. And then I walk toward Tom and Inga. Present, Jack, Tom, and Inga at the campsite. I meet Tom and Inga as they are just entering the campsite, and I sure don't want anyone hearing what I'm going to tell them. Tom says, we made sure that no one will use sifts to transport the bodies. I shake my head and answer, well, we're about a day late and a few dollars short since the bodies are already gone. Inga's face shows obvious disbelief and asks, but how was that possible? I explain, Destiny helped Glenn, Hammer, and me track the bodies to a large rock outcropping where they were taken away in a helicopter. The only helicopters I know of that weren't sifts belonged to Stacy Summers and were used to bring her horses and the bear to the wedding. Inga swears, I should have done a more thorough job on that bitch's face. I look at Tom and he explains, Jack missed the fight, so I needed to bring him up to speed. Jack, a very drunk Stacy stumbled into the clearing while I was busy trying to put out the fire Hammer set on Megan. She became the royal rich bitch she is and refused to leave, so Inga, and she got into a bit of a run-in. Inga interrupts, a bit of a run in my butt. Tom, tell the truth, I kicked her butt. I laugh and append my first statement. Yes, Inga, you did kick her butt, but she was very drunk. Inga folds her arms across her chest and says, okay, The next time I have a repeat of this discussion with her, I hope she's not drunk. Jack smiles and then asks, I've been trying to figure out why in the hell Stacy would take the bodies. I nod my head in agreement. Yeah, why in the hell would anyone steal 2 bodies? Inga punches the shit out of my arm and exclaims, are you two getting senile? It makes perfect sense to me. She is going to use the bodies for blackmail. Son of a bitch, I hadn't thought about that. Jack nods his head and agrees, you know I bet you're right. She was pissed as hell that Ben and Jennifer got married. I laugh and say, she'd better hope she doesn't piss off Ben because he's liable to permanently remove her from the roles of the living. Inga asks, Tom, you act like he's some sort of god of retribution? I laugh and sing. Well, you don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Ben. Jack laughs and adds an insult. Well, on those sour notes, I'm taking my family back to the tunnels under the cabin. My kid screwed up my back, and I need to get a massage from Masha. Jack leaves. Inga looks at me and asks, Tom, why would you say what you did about Ben? He seems like a nice man to me. I begin to enumerate. Inga, look at all that Ben has done. He drove Jennifer and the rest of us crazy looking for him. Ben and Destiny kicked the shit out of the greenies who invaded his land. Ben and Stacy kicked the shit out of the Mexican invasion of Texas. Hell, even the Mossad team got their butts handed to them. And I would tell you to pull the military records on Ben. But the ones that haven't been destroyed are classified so deeply that even we can't get to them. Just so you know, Ben and Jack sent a huge number of scumsuckers to their heaven, but when they got to their heaven, they had a huge problem. Inga gives me a shocked look and asks, what was the big problem? I chuckle because she walked right into this one. Ben got there before them, and the reward they were expecting had already been taken. Inga stamps her foot and says, Tom, it's not nice to insult people's beliefs. I laugh and reply, Inga, it's not a belief system. It's just a made-up story. Now come on, we need to make sure all the gear gets hauled out of here, and then I think we should figure out where Stacy stashed the bodies. Present, Glenn and Hammer, leaving Glacier National Park. Hammer finally wakes up and groans. Ugh, my head feels like it got smashed. What the hell did you hit me for? I glare at him and answer, I'm pissed at you. If you hadn't been messing around, the authorities wouldn't have taken Evelyn's body. Hammer laughs and fires back, well, excuse me for actually doing something instead of standing around. I confront him, Hammer, Evelyn had a real issue, and I'm telling you, you've got a serious problem too. Hammer glares at me and snaps, I don't have a damn problem. Except that I don't have a drink right now. I laugh and reply, well, you burned through all the good stuff when you set Megan on fire, so you'll have to wait. Now, we need to get out of here and see if we can find where Stacy took the bodies. I help Hammer up, and we head back to the campsite to catch a ride to the airport. Present, Stacy and Samantha, heading to the cabin on the Truth Network private jet. I have a big problem. No, actually, I have 2 big problems in the form of Evelyn and Megan's bodies. Now that I have them, what the hell should I do? Should I return them to Ben and, ugh, I can barely stand saying her name, Jennifer? Or should I turn them over to the authorities? I talk it over with Samantha, and she comes up with what might be a solution. Samantha smiles and suggests, Stacy, why don't you let me do a report on the bodies? We could even include you in the report so you can explain how you found them in a clearing at the wedding. I watch as Stacy thinks. Then she counters, do you really think the Truth Network, especially Liz, would let you air that report? I mention, if we time it right, the station will air it before Liz knows about it. Stacy cautions, don't you think Liz is going to be pissed off about this? I laugh and answer, of course she will. But what's the worst she can do? Stacy answers, I don't think I really want to contemplate that scenario, but okay, it's your funeral. She takes out her phone and calls Bill to make the arrangements. Present, Liz and Bernie, heading back to the destroyed cabin. Bernie shocks me when he says he doesn't like living in the tunnels. That's something I never knew about my soon-to-be husband. So I ask him if he has a better idea when he suggests, I really have had my fill of living under Jennifer's roof. Oh yes, there are benefits, but the drawbacks, in my mind, are too numerous to enumerate. Liz asks me if I have a better idea than living in the tunnels, and I simply reply, hell yes, I have a better idea. How about we either rent or buy a house in Leadville, or stay at the hotel? I watch Liz as she thinks. I can see her face go through different emotions, then she smiles and says, Bernie, that's a great idea. Just like a clueless male, I ask, which one is a great idea? Liz smiles and replies, I like the idea of purchasing a place of our own. It's so romantic. Liz continues, now let me get out of this blasted, stupid bridesmaid dress, and let's get to Leadville so we can start looking for a place. I head to the changing area. Bernie follows me, and it takes much longer for me to change than I thought it would. Present, Safia, Ira, and Mira, on the hunt. It's shocking that Alexei betrayed me with Zarika. I push him away, jump to my feet, and announced to Mira and Ira, I'm coming with you to find those troublemakers. Alexei hesitates. Should I come too? Mira, Ira, and I glare at him, and I snap. There's no way I'm letting you near her again. You're lucky I don't make you regret this even more. What were you thinking? Alexei stammers. I guess I wasn't thinking. Ira interrupts with a supremely valid question. Alexei, did you use a sheath with Zarika? Alexei looks guilty and I know the answer, so I begin to kick him and swear, Alexei, why were you so stupid? You could have infected me with whatever you got from that 304. He begins to crawl away and I deliver an ultimatum. And if she's pregnant, I'm going to kill both of your butts. I look at Ira and Mira and ask, will you wait for me to change my clothes? Mira answers, of course we will pause while you acquire new accoutrements. Ira adds, Safia, we are both regretful and shocked at the behavior of our brother. We did not comprehend he was such of a dog of horny with no wisdom of responsibility. They accompany me to the BDU room. I find an outfit that fits me and I ask, do you feel that I need body armor? Ira replies, with Alexei's sexual antics, I am almost thankful that Todd and I didn't perform coitus. Safia poses an armor of body question and I reply most certainly, you need protection for you and your dreaded fetus. Mira concurs, most certainly Safia, we do not wish any harm to come to our future niece or nephew. Safia has changed her accoutrements, applied armor of body that essentially fit, and retrieved her bow while we retrieved our katanas. We provisioned our packs with mine being the most heavily encumbered because I was not also burdened with the dreaded fetus. Then we departed the tunnels to pursue the terrible teens. Present, Zarika and Yasmin, on the run. We didn't thoroughly think about our escape plan because there were no cars in the garage and we were forced to walk toward Leadville. We had not walked far when a man with a pickup truck stopped and asked, you two need a lift into Leadville? I smile at him and answer, yes sir, that would be great. He motions to the back of the truck. We climb in, move to the front of the bed of the truck and lean against our backpacks. I lean over so Yasmin can hear me and ask, why don't you call your friends in Denver to pick us up? Yasmin makes a bad face and advises, Zarika, after what they did to me, I do not wish to ever see them again. I show my surprise. Yasmin, tell me what happened. She looks down and confesses, Zarika, it was terrible. They got me drunk one night, and when I woke up many men were having their way with me. One was even filming it. She begins to cry and I finally understand why she has been depressed and spent most of the time in her room. I hug her and try to comfort her by saying, Yasmin, do not feel so bad. She cries even harder and adds to her confession, Zarika, you do not understand. I had never. I hug her tighter and console, Yasmin, before Ben saved me, many men did that to me. In fact, just recently it happened to me again. Yasmin gave me a look of surprise and asks, it was hard, but I felt good telling someone what happened to me in Denver. I knew about Zarika's past with terrible Hussein, but I had no idea what she was talking about now. I even worried a little that perhaps she and Ben. No, I need to find out the truth. So I ask Zarika, what do you mean? Zarika gets some tears in her eyes and answers, Yasmin, you know how I liked being with the twins' brother Alexei? I nod my head and answer, yes, I remember that you spent much of your time with him and then suddenly stopped. I realize what happened, put my hand over my mouth and utter, don't tell me he assaulted you. Zarika cries and blurts out, yes he did, Yasmin. He held me down on his bed and forced himself on me. But that's not the worst. I foolishly ask, what could be worse than that? Zarika is crying like crazy and answers, Yasmin, I've missed my periods. I'm pregnant. We hold each other and cry over the many bad things which have happened to both of us. I pull away, look Zarika in the face and come up with a new plan. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell. Ramadi. Just when I thought things were going fairly well, there was a huge explosion that ripped into the Humvee. It blew me the hell out of the gunner's position and tossed the Humvee like a toy against the far wall of the street. As I flew through the air, my first thoughts were of Jack and my rifle. I smacked back first into the same wall as the destroyed Humvee and was stunned for a very brief moment. But then the rounds which the scumsuckers fired into my body armor rudely brought me back to the real world. I jumped up, looked at the Humvee, and saw it was practically blown in two. I ran toward it and yelled, Jack, are you okay? I reached the wretched Humvee, looked inside, and saw Jack beginning to crawl toward the missing back door. I ordered, you stay inside the Humvee until I get my deuce set up. The Humvee was resting on its side, so I moved to what was left of the roof, pulled the pin that secured my deuce to the gunner's position, and headed to the back of the Humvee. Jack handed me the portable tripod for my deuce and said, here you go, Ben. Make the scumsuckers pay. I set the tripod on the uphill side of the disabled Humvee, making sure it was wedged into some holes in the Humvee, put my deuce on the tripod, and began to give US covering fire, which worked to keep the scumsuckers away from us. Jack yelled, I hauled out our footlockers. Then I went up front to check on the captain and the corporal. Unfortunately, the corporal caught a piece of shrapnel in the head, and he was dead. As I moved to the captain, he woke up and complained, "Sergeant Reynolds, I can't feel my legs." I replied, "Well, sir, we need to get you the hell out of this Humvee because I'm not sure how long Ben can keep the scumsuckers away from us." The captain needlessly cautioned me, "Sergeant Reynolds, be careful when moving me because of my back and legs." I moved Captain M as carefully as I could out of the destroyed Humvee and placed him on the ground. Then I said, "Sir, I really need to help Ben keep the scumsuckers off of us." Then I reached into my pocket, took out the bottle of pills, handed them to the captain, and said, "Sir, take 1 or 2 of these. They will help with the pain." I watched him take 2 of them and figured that soon we wouldn't have any more problems with the captain. Then I ran beside Ben and asked, "Do you need anything?" Ben answered, "I could use some more ammo for my deuce." I ran to the back of the destroyed Humvee, grabbed a couple of ammo cans, and dashed back to Ben. Then I pulled up my M14 and began to help keep the scumsuckers off of us. Finally, there was some help when another Humvee stopped. The gunner of the new Humvee yelled, "You guys look like shit." I replied, "The driver is dead and the captain can't feel his legs. Do you have room for the 3 of us?" He was busy firing, but then caught a break and said, "Hell yeah, you guys need to hump your captain over here and then dump a WP grenade into your Humvee." Ben complained, "Like hell I'm leaving this my deuce." The gunner answered, "As you wish, just move your butts because we can't stay here forever." Ben dashed to the new Humvee with my deuce and dumped it inside. Then he ran back to the destroyed Humvee, grabbed our 2-foot lockers, and humped them to the new Humvee. The gunner complained, "Hell, what else do you 2 need?" Ben flipped him the bird and yelled, "That's all other than the captain." Ben and I met at the captain, and the captain continued, "Shit, just leave me because I can't feel my legs." Ben bent down, checked his back, and said, "Sir, I think your back is broken, but don't worry. We will be careful, and you still might be able to walk." Ben looked at me and said, "Jack, I have an idea. Wait here." He ran back to the destroyed Humvee, grabbed his rifle case, ran back to the captain, and said, "Sir, we're going to transport you on my rifle case so we don't damage your back anymore." We carefully log-rolled the captain onto his side. Ben put his rifle case against the captain's back. We rolled him upon the rifle case as the captain swore, "Son of a bitch," and passed out. Once he was on the case, Ben grabbed one end. I grabbed the other, and we ran to the new Humvee. They opened the back. We slid the captain in on the rifle case, then carefully log-rolled the captain off the rifle case. Then Ben said, "Wait, the WP grenade." He jumped out, ran back to the destroyed Humvee, hauled the dead driver out of it, dumped a WP grenade into it. Firemen carried the dead driver to the new Humvee and slid him in the back beside the captain. Then he ran back to the new Humvee, and he no sooner took a seat than the driver took off like his, but was on fire. Flashback, Masha, childcare. Louise thanked me profusely for dinner, which made me blush. I told her, "You may have liked the dinner. However, I know it was not up to my normal standards. I promise to do better tomorrow." Louise smiled and declared, "Masha, thank you. You were such a help to me. Now I'd better get home and clean my clothes for tomorrow." I asked for verification, "Will you be here again tomorrow at about 6 in the morning?" She smiled and answered, "Of course I will. And if you wouldn't mind, it might be nice if you took Linda for a walk tomorrow and came to the market. I really miss her while I'm at work." I gave Louise a sincere smile and answered, "Of course, it would be my pleasure." Louise picked up Linda, thanked me again, and then they were gone. And I was once again the only soul in this big, lonely, empty house. I sat on the couch, turned on the television, and tried to assuage my loneliness. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, trying to solve a huge problem. I was still in my bed, sick as dog when Mother left to go to the store. However, the instant she left, I jumped out of bed and renewed my search for the narcotics which Mother used to adulterate our food and drink. I had searched almost everywhere and was ready to give up when I urgently needed the toilet again. I knew Mother didn't like me using the downstairs guest half bathroom, but I knew I couldn't make it to my own bathroom without having an accident. Once again, I had huge cramps and began to sweat because of the pain. I flushed the toilet and heard a funny banging noise come from inside which I had never heard before. I took all the stupid knickknacks off the top of the toilet tank, then removed the lid, and there was a baggie filled with 2 different medicine bottles. I pulled the baggie out of the toilet, wiped it dry on the hand towel, and read the 2 medicine bottles through the baggie. One said the medicine was Durin, and the other didn't have a name on it. I replaced the lid back on the toilet, set the knickknacks back in the exact location where they had been. The dust on the toilet lid helped. And I quickly ran upstairs with my prize to research what in the heck Mother had been poisoning us with. By using the internet, I was able to determine that she gave us the Durin to make us constipated, and the other pills, which weren't labeled, We're just X-Lax pills to make us have diarrhea. I read the warnings on the X-Lax site about not taking more than the recommended dose because cramping could result. I seriously questioned how many of the frickin' pills she was giving us. I decided to give Daddy the good news, so I called him. He answered his phone. "Hello, my princess." I stamped my foot and complained, "Daddy, I am not a princess." He laughed and continued to tease. "Jennifer, you will always be my princess. So why did you call?" I told him the good news. Waited for what seemed to be too long when Daddy finally answered. "Jennifer, I think you should put the pills back where you found them." I yelled into the phone, "Daddy, have you gone frackin' crazy? What I should do is flush them down the toilet." Daddy tried to calm me. "Listen, Jennifer, I found us a maid today, and she's a real piece of work. Evelyn won't stand a chance against her. Now you need to put the pills back so your mother won't be wise to our plan." I still wasn't sure about this, and I came up with my own idea, but didn't tell Daddy. So I lied just a little. "Okay, Daddy, I will put the pills back, but if I get sick again, I'm going to—" Daddy interrupted. "Jennifer, this bullshit of getting sick is going to end, so don't you dare threaten me." I could tell that Daddy was in a bad mood today, so I consented. "Okay, Daddy, you win." He laughed and said, "Now that's my good girl." And then he just hung up the phone. I took the frackin' pills back downstairs to the guest bathroom, loosened the lids on the pill bottles, made sure the baggie seal wasn't very well, and tossed them back into the toilet tank. I was happy when I saw the bag begin to fill with water, and was even happier as bubbles began to come out of the pill bottles. Flashback. Alexei, at the laboratory. Chow Mein was finally captured, but not before she contaminated a good portion of the laboratory with her trail of feces. They took her to the veterinary again, and his initial suggestion, because he didn't know my medicine precipitated the problem, was to sanitize the laboratory, sanitize me, give me a new room, and replace all of my clothes. He was concerned that Chow Mein might pass some sort of infection to the personnel in the laboratory. I liked the idea of changing rooms because my old room smelled terrible and I was not sure when or if they could adequately clean it. However, I was not happy about having to be sanitized and even more chagrined with losing all my clothes. Once they started to sanitize me, I hated it even more because it hurt and the chemicals they used smelled almost as bad as the mess that Chow Mein made. The worst part they didn't even tell me about before completion. I could not believe it when they shaved my head. I was given hospital scrubs, which the doctors wore, as my new clothes, but without any underwear because they didn't have anything small enough to fit me. Then I was taken to my new room, and everything smelled like a hospital room. I hated it. I decided that my experiments on Chow Mein had to soon end in her termination. Flashback. Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. We transversed down the steep slope to the destroyed pullet conveyance. Our journey required more effort than normal because our lower extremities were unshod, and the littered slope was fraught with stones. We finally arrived at the pullet conveyance, oculated the interior, and Ira remarked, "My sister, when we apply the accoutrements of the occupants, we will appear as buffoons." I chided my sister, "Ira, if you wish to participate in a show of fashion, then you can remain in your current accoutrements. I, however, will exchange my accoutrements with the smaller passenger." Ira vociferously complained, "My sister Mira, why should you acquire the accoutrements of the smaller passenger?" I grinned at my sister and stated, "Because I am not a clothes of horse who worries about my fashion as you are wont to do." Ira swore as her manner became more formal. "Miranda, you know your statement is the epitome of falseness. If either of us aspires to be a clothes of horse, it of course is you." Then I noticed Mira had already accessed the passenger area of the pullet conveyance and was busily engaged in removing the accoutrements from the smallest passenger. I was going to complain, but instead giggled when she forced the scrap of clothing Kostia provided for us into the expired passenger's mouth and said, "This should inform Kostia exactly of my feelings about this insufficient accoutrement." "Hurry, my sister, daylight is aflame." I still complained, "Mira, we should have played scissor, paper, and rock for the privilege of having primary choice of accoutrements." Mira laughed and insulted, "Sister, if you somnambulate, you lose." I finished removing the accoutrements from the driver and complained, "Mira, he was a swine who defecated in his trousers." Mira giggled. "As I vocalized earlier, if you do not care to acquire his accoutrements, continue to abide in your current clothing." I had already transferred into his defiled accoutrements. Through Kostia's joke at Mira and instructed, "I would suggest that you place this into your nether regions where the darkness does not penetrate." Mira began to answer when our tympanic units detected the sound of an approaching conveyance. Flashback. Todd, on the mission. I turned off the audible alarm on the GPS unit since I did not want it to alert anyone to my presence. I approached the designated landing area and saw something which thoroughly pissed me off. I saw the distinctive flare of several cigarettes. So once again my intuition was correct. There had been a leak and my mission was compromised. I had considered this when my last mission, the one which landed me on Luz Island, went so far south, and now I had the confirmation. I had two choices to make. One to continue with the mission, or two to terminate the mission. I sat and watched the idiots as they smoked, and even talked and laughed and knew what my answer would be. However, I wasn't going to tell my handler or HQ anything because of the leak. Present, Tom and Inga, wrapping up the campsite. Inga walks back into the campsite wearing BDUs and I complain. Hey, where did the dress go? She answers, well, with the wedding being over and most of the guests gone, I figured I would change. Is that a problem? I foolishly answer, without thinking. Yeah, I sort of like the dress. Then I realize what I said was a common mistake I usually come out with because I'm so tired. In a not-so-valiant attempt to recover, I amend my statement. Yeah, it sort of classed up the place. Inga grins at me, and I know I've let my mouth get me in trouble again, so I fall back on my tried-and-true strategy of command. Well, since you've changed into more appropriate gear, you can start policing up the trash while I go and change. She grins at me, salutes, and adds the normal insult to a working guy. Oui, mon capitaine. I mutter under my breath as I leave to change out of my monkey suit. Present, Jack, Masha, and the children, leaving for the cabin. We catch a ride on one of the helicopters headed to the Glacier Park International Airport. Ivan sees who we're riding with and says, Miss Mabel, I want to say food of Uncle Ben and Auntie Jennifer wedding best food I ever eat, extra specially the cake. She smiles at Ivan and wisely answers, Thank you, Ivan. It was my wedding gift to them. Just so you know, I do have some of the cake left over. However, you can only have it in your mother and father agree. Ivan pouts a bit and answers, I like cake, but I do not like howevers. They are never good. I chuckle a little and instruct, Ivan, my son, there will be many howevers in your life, and some will be good. Mabel adds some insight. Ivan, do you realize why your parents kept you from eating too much cake? Ivan thinks for a moment and says, yes, because they punish me for leaving table to go to Destiny Wolf Lady. Masha gasps. I chuckle and Mabel adds the correction. Ivan, that's not true. They kept you from having more cake because they love you. If you ate all the cake that you wanted, it would make you very sick. Ivan says, yes, but I only get 2 tiny pieces. He holds up his fingers to show, and they are about an inch apart when Masha corrects him. Ivan, you know better than to lie to Ms. Mabel. If you do not tell the truth about the size of the 2 pieces of cake you ate, then you will have no more cake. Ivan spreads his fingers further apart and confesses, perhaps they were this big. Mabel asks, Ivan, did you eat some meat and vegetables? Ivan begins to fidget, so I know he's having problems telling the truth. He finally looks down and admits, meat, yes, I like meat in Russian, but please don't ask about the vegetables. The conversation continues when Mabel says, that must be Russian for meat, but what did you do with the vegetables? Ivan confesses, I feed them to Sharik dog, he like vegetables. Masha gets ready to let Ivan have it, but Mabel holds up her hand and continues, Ivan, I have to say that you have made me very sad. I work incredibly hard to cook good meals that give you all the vitamins you need to grow up big and strong like your father. And you feed the special food I make to Sharik? Yes, I am very sad. Ivan looks down at the floor of the helicopter, begins to cry and asks, please, Miss Mabel, do not be sad. I promise to be good boy and eat all my vegetables from now on. Mabel surprises us when she says, that's great news, Ivan, because I happen to have some vegetables left from the wedding, and I will fix you a big plate of them for dinner tonight. Ivan's face switches immediately to a grin as he asks, with some and cake? Masha answers, yes, Ivan, you may have, but no more cake today. We land at the airport, find AC 130 that's headed to Leadville Airport, and climb aboard. Present, Tom and Inga, wrapping up the campsite. I figure it's taken long enough for me to change my clothes so that Inga should be finished picking up the trash around the campsite. I wander back towards the campsite and I'm surprised when I see her again, so I sputter, what the hell? You're back in your dress. Inga twirls, which isn't as effective as I would like because her dress is too tight, and answers, well, you did say you like me in a dress better, so I thought I would change for your benefit. I complain, Inga, you don't have to change for me. She interrupts, why not, Tom? I like you, and if you like me in a dress, perhaps I will wear one more often. I try to counter, but Inga, they aren't practical for our type of work. She interrupts me again and says, that's funny, Glenn and Hammer sure don't seem to have any problem wearing them. I correct her, Inga, those aren't dresses, they are kilts. Glenn walks up and adds to the confusion. Ye ken what th difference between a kilt and a frock is? Inga answers, I have no idea since they look the same to me. Hammer raises up his kilt. We both get an eyeful of something that I'd rather not see as he answers, you don't wear underwear under a kilt. I figure Inga is going to go ballistic, but instead she points and says, Hammer, you should have that looked at. Hammer continues to hold up the front of his kilt, looks down and asks, "What teheel is rang?" I notice a twinkle in Inga's eyes, so I know she's up to something. Then she giggles and teases. "Well, it's just that you're so small." Glenn and I about bust a gut laughing. Hammer turns about 10 shades of red, drops the front of his kilt, and Glenn says, "Hammer ye certain hud your crease handed te yeon at a body. No, let's fin a chopper." Hammer complains, "I guess she dusn't kin shrinkage fray bien bra." The Inga ruins it all when she says, "Oh, I understand that. It's just that Tom's is more than twice as large as yours." I complain, "Inga, when in the hell did you ever see mine?" She still has the twinkle in her eyes, which tells me I should have known better when she asks, "So Tom, are you saying yours is smaller than Hammer's?" Glenn and Inga laugh like crazy, and Glenn says, "I hink baith I ye hey mit your match." Glenn is still laughing and Hammer is still complaining as they enter the chopper. Some rangers walk up and save me from further embarrassment when one of them asks, "With the wedding being over, do you feel we need to keep this campsite reserved for the rest of the week?" The other ranger remarks, "And what a hell of a wedding that was. I was shocked to see the wolves and the bears bring the Mossad agents out of the forest. By the way, with Ben and Jennifer being gone, how did the FBI get the Mossad agents on their chopper?" I laugh and answer, "One of the wolves bit the hell out of the FBI agent when he got too close to the Mossad team." Inga smiles and provides the real answer. "I have a way with animals, so I escorted the Mossad team to the FBI helicopter." The first ranger remarks, "Miss, that was dangerous." Inga laughs and continues her train of teases. "No, really. I work with Tom, so I am used to animals." They all begin to laugh, so I interrupt this laugh fest and answer the first question. "No, I would say that you can release the campsite from the reservation." The rangers say, "Thanks, and thank you for cleaning up the site so well. Have a nice trip back home." They walk away while Inga continues to grin at me. Present, Stacy and Samantha, in Leadville. We make great time in the Truth Network corporate jet. Land in Leadville, just fine, and Samantha says, "Stacy, let's do the story about the bodies before we head to the cabin." I'm still not sure this is such a wise idea, so I ask, "Why do you want to do this story first?" Sam replies, "Well, I figure Liz and Bernie are on one of the CIF's C-130s about now, and my guess is they had to turn off their phones. So if we can get the story on the bodies done in time, I can send it to the station and get it aired before Liz even knows about it." I shake my head in caution. "Samantha, I'm not really comfortable with this." She interrupts, "Well, I'm the reporter and I am tired of Liz protecting her BFF Jennifer." The plane rolls to a stop. The soon-to-be-fired flight attendant opens the side door. We walk out into the cold, fresh mountain air, and I see Bill waiting for us. He walks up and informs us, "Miss Summers, everything is ready for Ms. Stevens' story. Please follow me to our building." The whole group, I forgot to mention that the 2 video camera operators were with us, climb into 2 waiting vans which whisk us away toward our building and Samantha's report. I realize, even more than Stacy does, that my report about Evelyn and Megan's bodies will upset Liz, but I've truly had my fill of her limiting the stories I can do. It's stifling my ability and not allowing me to grow as a reporter. I warn my cameraman, "We're going to do a story that will probably get Liz very pissed off, so you are both welcome to refuse to work on this story." They look at each other and John asks, "What the hell is the story?" I give them my best smile, in hopes it will influence them, and answer, "Evelyn Donaldson and Megan were killed by a pack of wolves at the wedding after they killed a wolf. Stacy was able to recover the bodies, and we are going to do a report on them. Liz wanted this story buried until after Ben and Jennifer's honeymoon, but I'm concerned Liz will bury the story forever, so we're doing it now. I hope to have the station broadcast it while Liz is out of touch on the flight back to Leadville." They both smile, and John replies, "Hell, Sam, we're your camera crew, and if you're doing the story, then we need to help you." Stacy interjects, "I hope you know that Liz could fire all of you." I look at Stacy and ask, "Present, Ira, Mira, and Safia, on the hunt." We translocate above the tunnels and begin to oculate for traces of the terrible teenager's passage, but experience no fortuitous occurrences. I loudly inform our group, if my Todd was here, he would easily locate the tracks left by the terrible teenagers. Mira suggests, perhaps they acquitted the domicile through the anterior portal. I notate the area is cordoned off by the constabulary and inquire, "How would you propose we oculate the area as it is under the jurisdiction of the constabulary?" Mira proposes, "We do not need to oculate the exact area of the anterior portal. We should proceed to oculate the area further away from the portal." I inform my sister, "My Todd would have performed such an action without your overt fare of fan." Myra's face contributes a most unkind expression as she emphatically states, "Ira, I grow exhausted from the constant vocalization about your Todd. He has departed, and we have no idea if he will ever return." I promptly show Mira the inappropriate digit and state, "Mira, of course he will return since we are mates of soul." Mira replies with dual inappropriate digits and laughs. Irina, if you were mates of soul, then you would have performed the act of coitus. I challenge her assertion. Miranda Sedankina, please inform me if you and your Ben performed such an act which resulted in your dreaded fetus? Hades, no. Your dreaded fetus was created in a sterile laboratory, which did not involve coitus. Mira reaches for her katana in preparation to battle me when Safia interrupts. I wonder if I should have left Mira and Ira behind and proceeded on this mission by myself. Once again, they are on the verge of battle until I interrupt. I think I have found the terrible teenager tracks. Thank God they are both more motivated to find Zarika and Yasmin than they are to fight. Ira dashes over, looks at the track, and praises my action. Safia, indeed you have found the trail of the terrible teens. Mira is slightly slower arriving because of her pregnant protrusion. She gazes at the tracks and agrees. Yes, Safia, we are not sure of your motivation. However, oculating the first track has made our decision to allow you on this quest valid. I look at the two of them and inform them. My motivation is simple. I am sure that Zarika used her feminine wiles to seduce my Alexei, so I plan on terminating her. Ira cautions, Safia, I do not share your analysis of the situation. I feel that Alexei was a dog horny and took advantage of Zarika. Mira adds additional information. Safia, unfortunately I agree with my sister Ira. Alexei has become. I wave my bow at them, begin to follow the trail and declare, I do not care. I plan on eliminating the problem. Present, Yasmin and Zarika, on the run. Zarika surprises me when she tells me Alexei assaulted her, and it makes me angry. And people don't like it when I get angry. I think while Zarika describes her humiliation and come up with a new plan. I smile at Zarika and say, Zarika, we will make Alexei pay for assaulting you. Zarika stops crying and asks, how will we do that? Do you have a plan? I smile at her and say, of course I have a plan, and here is what we will do. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell. Ramadi. With the way this Humvee jockeyed around, I needed to do something to stabilize Captain M to keep his back from being further damaged. I was already highly concerned about Jack moving him out of the destroyed Humvee. I began to pack my deuce ammo cans around him to keep him from moving when he woke up and asked, where the hell are we and what the hell are you doing? I answered, we're in the back of a different Humvee and I'm packing these ammo cans around you to immobilize you. How do you feel? Captain M complained, I feel like hell, like a ton of shit fell on me. I cautiously continued, can you feel your legs? It took a second, then he said, hell no, I can't feel anything. Why didn't you follow my orders and leave me in our Humvee? The driver of the new Humvee yelled in answer, sir, apparently you don't remember what the scumsuckers did to the last soldiers they captured in Fallujah. They tortured them to death, then dragged the bodies through the street, and finally hung the bodies from one of the overpasses. I asked the driver, the captain needs more medical care than I can provide. How long until we reach Ramadi? The driver answered, if we don't have to stop to deal with any more injured, about an hour. I had an idea, so I asked, is there any chance we could get a medevac for the captain? The driver responded, well, for that to happen, we would have to stop, and it's going to be hell from here to Ramadi, so if we stop for a medevac, there's a pretty good chance we all die. I made the captain as comfortable as I could. I turned, looked at Jack, and sure as hell didn't like what I saw. Ben had his hands full with the captain, so I didn't want to be a bother. He finally looked at me and asked, Jack, what the hell is wrong with you? I faked a smile and answered, my back is bothering me a little. Ben came over beside me, looked me in the eyes and whispered, like hell it's bothering you a little bit. You're diaphoretic, sweating profusely, from the pain. Now where are the pain pills I gave you earlier? I pointed to the captain and whispered in answer. I gave the bottle to the captain. He took 2 of them, but didn't return the bottle. Ben swore under his breath, Jack, that bottle didn't have your name on it. If they find it on the captain, I interrupted. If they find it on the captain, they will assume they are his. Ben smiled and responded, Jack, that was quick thinking. Now I'm going to get some more pills for you. I shook my head. Ben, there's no way in hell I'm taking anything right now because the last pills I took knocked me for a loop and I need all my wits about me if we're going to survive. Now stop being a mother hen and take care of the captain. He needs you more than I do. Ben left me alone, moved back beside the captain, and I watched as he searched for the bottle of pills. I began to search for Jack's bottle of pills, which he gave to the captain, and finally found it. I tossed it to Jack. He caught it, but the old scumsucker refused to take anything. The captain began to moan and complained, I hurt like hell. Can't you give me something for the pain? I grabbed my Unit 1 pack, a basic combat medic's backpack, found 2 of what I was looking for, jabbed one of the doses of morphine into the captain's leg, and then slipped over and nailed Jack with the second dose. Jack swore up a blue storm. What the hell did you do that for? I smiled at Jack and answered, you needed that because in the shape you are in you couldn't fight anyway. So, take it easy until you feel better. Jack continued with his complaints. I'm going to kick your, but when we get out of here. I was going to respond when the gunner fell into the Humvee, bleeding from multiple wounds and looked like death warmed over. I ordered Jack, take care of him. Try to stop the bleeding with pressure dressings from the UOP. I'm going to take over as the gunner. Having learned my lesson from our previous trip, I slipped the hearing protectors off the injured gunner and climbed up into the turret. I wish like hell I had time to replace the already damaged layer of my ceramic body armor plates. The driver was certainly correct. There were more scumsuckers than the captain had complaints. I began firing Ma Deuce and then ran into a huge issue. The injured gunner had fired so many rounds through this Ma Deuce that the barrel was shot out. I ducked back into the Humvee and the driver complained, "What the hell are you doing? Get back on the gun before we all die." I scrambled toward the back of the Humvee and the Ma Deuce I took from our Humvee and yelled, "This Ma Deuce is toast. The barrel is shot out." I had to move the dead driver from our Humvee out of the way because he was on top of my Ma Deuce. I grabbed it and scrambled back to the gun station. As I raised up, some scumsucker got lucky and grazed my helmet, so I pulled up my 1911 and emptied it into the scumsucker. Then I pulled the pin holding the Ma Deuce to the mount, dropped it inside the Humvee, wrangled my Ma Deuce up and into position when, son of a bitch, it happened again. Another round glanced off my helmet and made my ears ring. I jammed another mag home into my 1911 and fired like crazy to keep the scumsuckers off me. With my Ma Deuce finally in place, I racked the action and began to give them hell. Flashback, Masha, childcare. I had a terrible night last night. I foolishly let my emotions get the best of me and became sad, depressed, and despondent. This life was not the life I dreamed it would be. It wasn't a dream, it was a nightmare. My Jack was deployed to Iraq, headed to the very dangerous Ramadi, and I hadn't received a single call from him. I had no friends in America as I had in Russia other than Louise and Michael, and I'm not sure I would call them friends. I was as alone as a little lost ship on the sea of despair, just trying to find my way to a friendly port. But soon, Louise and Linda would be here. Then I would have something to occupy my time. I needed someone to take care of all day, and as Louise had asked yesterday, I would push Linda in her stroller to the market. I was anxiously waiting for Louise's arrival, and today she even arrived earlier than before. I opened the door, smiled a real smile, and waved. Louise returned the wave as I worked my way toward her car, which sounded worse than it did yesterday. Louise complained, "This piece of junk car already died 3 times today. I almost didn't make it here this morning." My throat tightened with the possible fear that one day Louise's car would not make it to the house and would strand her and Linda somewhere beside the road. I had to do something, so I suggested, "Louise, we have a car that you could borrow." Louise answered, "Masha, you are already doing so much for me. I wouldn't feel right borrowing your car." I firmly insisted, "Louise, do not be stubborn. I cannot drive here because I do not yet have a driver's license, so the car is just sitting in the garage. If your car broke down, it could strand you and Linda beside the road." Louise thinks for a few moments, then agrees. "Masha, I didn't think about that, but you are correct. Are you sure it wouldn't bother you or your husband?" I was confronted by one of my main problems. I should really ask Jack about it first. However, he wasn't here, and I had no way to contact him. I made up my mind. "Louise, I am sure it will be fine. Let's get Linda into the house, and then you can move your car by the curb because we will need the driveway to remove our car from the garage." We brought Linda into the house. I made her comfortable in her room on a blanket while Louise moved her car, which again barely started. I retrieved the keys for Jack's car, opened the garage, handed the keys to Louise, and she said, "Thank you so much again, Masha. I will take very good care of your car." I watched as she left. Then, since I had responsibilities, I went in the house and played with Linda. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, trying to solve a huge problem. I decided that I sure as heck didn't want to be home tonight when Daddy brought home the new maid. Even though I wasn't really old enough yet to qualify as anything except a wise, I was still smart enough to understand that there would be some drama. The problem became, where would I go? Then I came up with a great idea that Mother and Daddy couldn't complain about. I wrote them a note, left it on the kitchen counter, and packed my backpack with the items I would need and some food just in case. I went to the bathroom one more time, hopped on my bike, and headed out. It was a short ride to the ballet school. Yes, that right. I decided the ballet school would be better than putting up with all the drama which was going to occur at home. I got to the school, brought my bike inside, and put the chain lock on it. Olga saw me and asked, "Jennifer, what are you doing here since today is not your lesson day?" I answered, "Olga, Mother is concerned that I'm gaining weight, and I wanted you to assess my conditioning." Olga said, "Yes, your mother can sometimes be a problem. Why don't you get into your tights, and we will weigh you, and I will perform an evaluation." I thought to myself, Mother's problem creation capability is not just sometimes, it's usually all the time. And today I was sure it would start World War III. I got changed, came out to the dance floor where Olga weighed me, and said, Jennifer, your weight is fine. You are still growing, so it is normal to gain some weight. You have no stomach. Your legs are very shapely, and your arms are firm. I will write a note for your mother. She began to write the note. The door to the ballet school opened, and I was shocked. Flashback. Alexei, at the laboratory. I was in my new room. It was late at night, and I was reading a book with my flashlight when they returned chow mein. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing because in addition to how they shaved my head, they shaved all the hair off her. The psychologist apologized, sorry Alexei about having to shave chow mein, but the veterinarian felt that her hair might harbor something potentially infectious. He sat her on the floor, but she immediately jumped onto my new bed, crawled beside me and shivered because she was cold. I shined my flashlight at her, but she saw the light move across the bed and began to chase it. I moved it off the bed into the floor, but she didn't see it move because I moved it too quickly. So I moved it back on the bed, slowly back to the floor, and she gladly chased it. The psychologist commented, "It looks like you have a new game to play with chow mein." I smiled at him and answered, "Yes, I think this game will be very much fun and good exercise for chow mein." However, I knew I had discovered yet one more way to torment chow mein, and this method was with the blessing of the psychologist. I tried running the beam of light up the wall, and chow mein jumped up in the air and tried to catch it. I turned off the flashlight, and chow mein looked around the room and yowled because she couldn't find her adversary. Now I needed to come up with some way of automating the flashlight, so chow mein would be busy and I would be able to read and do other things. I looked up to the ceiling and conceived a great idea. I would hook a string to my ceiling fan, tie the flashlight to it, and turn the fan on a slow speed. I found an old shoelace which I saved, moved my chair under the ceiling fan, tied the string to the end of the fan, tied the flashlight to the string, and turned on the flashlight. I moved my chair back to my desk, turned the fan to low and laughed as chow mein began to run in circles and chase the flashlight beam. Flashback. Ira and Mira, back in Kazakhstan. With the approach of another conveyance, time was of the essence. I shouted to Mira, "Search for any expedient field weapons. Haste of post." Mira quickly replied, "The pullet passenger had 2 knives, one in each boot. I will provide you with one." I found something of use and added, "Here is an iron of tire." Mira came up with a long metal rod and said, "This also should do nicely." Then she stated, "Ira, the other conveyance has terminated its movement, therefore we must depart." I decided to perform one more act. Petrol was pouring out of the damaged pullet conveyance, so I soaked a piece of cloth in the petrol, moved it up to the cigarette lighter, placed it under the lighter socket, and pressed it in to activate the heating coil. I looked at Mira and announced, "We must vacate this area haste of post." We headed down the slope, toward a small stream. Flashback. Todd, on the mission. I worked my way closer to the enemy soldiers and heard them complain that I was late. This confirmed that the leak was from the company and was severe. It also served to thoroughly piss me off. Someone inside the company had sent me here and assumed I would be killed. But I wasn't the one dying tonight. I knocked my bow, waited for a cigarette to expose a face, and silently put an arrow between his eyes. I knocked my bow and prepared for the second one. After they discovered the second sudden death, I pulled up my rifle and began firing at the locations I had memorized. Present, Tom and Inga, wrapping up the campsite. Everyone has left. The Rangers were the last group, but Inga still grins at me, so I ask, "What the hell is the Cheshire Cat impersonation for?" Inga points and suggests, "It looks like the newlyweds forgot their camping gear and tents. I was just thinking that." I nip her crazy idea in the bud. "Inga, there's no way that's ever going to happen." Inga's grin turns into a pout, and she suggests, "Tom, I have been more than patient with you, and yet you foolishly resist all my advances. I'm beginning to wonder if you are not straight." I get pissed at the insinuation and angrily reply, "Inga, I'm straight." Inga interrupts, "Oh really? It's the only plausible excuse that I can think of." I spout, "Well, you'd better think again." She begins to cry and says, "Tom, I am a woman and I do have needs. I guess if you won't fulfill those needs, I will need to find someone else." Shit. I hate crying women because I don't know what to do, so I fall back on my training and command. "We need to catch the last chopper out of here and hightail it back to Leadville." Inga snidely snaps, "Yes, sir. I will pack up the newlyweds' camping gear first." "Sir." She's still crying as she leaves and begins to tear down the tents. I feel like shit. Present, Jack, Masha, and the children, on the C-130. Being back on a C-130 brings back many fond memories of when I was still in the Corps. I loved the hell out of these birds, well other than the noise and the uncomfortable seats, and this one had been worked over very nicely. Yeah, they beat the hell out of Blackhawks. Those choppers were practically flying death traps. And don't get me going on the MV-22 Osprey. The command loved those scum-suckers, but they crashed too often for my liking. I look over at Masha. She smiles at me and says, I can tell from his quiet disposition and the faraway look in his eyes that my Jack is thinking about his experiences in the Marines, probably reliving the glory of his past and ignoring the reality of the price which we as family paid. I clear my voice, place my hand on his and ask, Jack, you seem so distant right now? He replies, sorry, Masha, being back on AC 130 reminds of my times in the Marines. He takes a short pause, then continues with something that makes me very happy. Those might have been the good old days, but they don't hold a candle to the life we now have together. I squeeze his hand and affirm, yes, Jack, life is different than then. Now you have a family that loves you while then you only had Ben. Jack smiles and says, yeah, Ben really took good care of both of us. Remember the time I interrupt. Yes, Jack, I remember all the ways that Ben has helped us through the years. We couldn't have a more loyal friend. But I wonder, Jack, why do you still persist in calling him Ben? Jack smiles at me and explains, Masha, I do it as an honor to him. He was the most Ben-like warrior I have ever known and still is. Look at how he kicked the greenies butts on his property. Then he waves his hand toward Ivan and says, it's just a shame he will never know the joy of fatherhood. Jack had told me of the injuries Ben suffered during his extreme capture ordeal, so I didn't need to ask him. I want to leave the conversation on a happy note, so I say, but Jack, he's going to make the best uncle our children could ever have. Jack smiles and agrees. Yes, Masha, look at all he's already done for Ivan. We hear a howling noise, so I look at Jack and ask, did one of the wolves sneak on the plane with us? Jack answers, I don't think so, especially since that sounded more like a dog. I look at Ivan and see he's blowing the little silver whistle Destiny gave him. At each whistle, Sharik runs up and looks at Ivan while Ivan blows the whistle again. Finally, Sharik lies on the deck, howls and covers his ears with his front paws. I tell Ivan, I don't think that Sharik likes the whistle. Jack provides additional information. Ivan, it's probably hurting his ears because we're inside the airplane. Why were you blowing it anyway? Ivan smiles and says, I am boarding and want Destiny Wolf Lady to come so I could play. I smile at Ivan and say, Ivan, Destiny stayed at the campsite, so she couldn't come this time when you blew the whistle. But Sharik is your friend, and you like to play with him. Ivan smiles and asks, Mommy, can I get up to play with Sharik? I look at Jack, he smiles and nods, so I answer, yes, you may as long as you don't keep blowing the whistle which hurts Sharik's ears. Ivan unfastens his seatbelt, quickly jumps up, salutes, and says, thank you, General Mommy and Captain Papa. Then he runs down the center aisle of the plane with Sharik chasing him. I giggle and Jack complains, yeah, it's too bad that Ben can't have any children since I would love to get even for that particular dirty trick. I yawn and answer, well, I'm going to take a little nap. Can you take care of Veronica? Jack takes his daughter, and I partake of a well-deserved rest. Present, Tom and Inga, wrapping up the campsite. After making Inga cry, I feel like shit, so I move to help her tear down Ben's campsite. She's still crying as she crawls out of one of the tents where she has changed back into her BDUs. I get close and Inga commands, Tom, do not bother trying to help me tear down the tents. I have always done all the work in our partnership because we were friends. I begin to open my mouth, but Inga looks at me and orders, Tom, stifle it. I am tired of hearing all your bullshit lies. Now why don't you do something like a typical man of your age should do? Go crawl up on a picnic table and take a nap. I begin to fight the accusation, open my mouth, and Inga begins to loudly sing. So loudly she can't hear me. The thrill is gone. The thrill has gone away. Shit. I guess I've screwed the pooch on this one. Inga finishes, loads the camping gear into the final SIF's chopper, we put on our headsets, and we leave. I try to take the seat next to her, but she moves away from me. When I begin to say something into my headset, she reaches over and unplugs her headset. Yeah, I seriously screwed up this time, and suddenly get a sense of what I might have lost. I wonder what in the hell I can do to fix it. Present, Samantha and Stacy, in Leadville. Stacy is being too much of a mother hen about me wanting to do a report on Evelyn and Megan's bodies, so I look at her and ask, Stacy, you once said that if Liz ever fired me, you would start your own network and hire me. Is that offer still valid? Stacy smiles at me and immediately answers, Sam, of course the offer is still valid, even though I have no idea how to create a network. I'm sure if we put our heads together we can pull it off. Bill the cameraman asks, excuse me, Ms. Summers, does that offer apply to us? Stacy looks at him and answers, well, I can't have a network without camera operators, so yes, I guess it does. She then pauses and laughs, but only if you call me Stacy since Ms. Summers was my grandmama. We arrive at Stacy's building in Leadville. Her bodyguard Bill escorts us inside and says, I figure we have about an hour before we have to move the bodies. Stacy asks. Bill says something I don't understand, so I ask for clarification. Bill, I thought we were going to leave the bodies here. Bill answers, sorry, Ms. Summers. but I have heard from my sources that they already figured out I took the bodies. If we keep them here, they will certainly find them. I continue to ask, so what are your plans for the bodies? Bill smiles and answers, Ms. It's better if you don't know because then you have plausible deniability. Bill opens up one of the cooling units and says, this smaller one is the one we believe to be Megan. He holds up a sheaf of papers and continues, this is an independent medical examination that details the abuse to the body. I move over, see the corpse and wished I never had looked. Someone very sick did unmentionable things to the body. Unfortunately, they don't make an eye bleach to remove things which you wished you never had seen from your mind. Bill cautions, Ms. You're not looking too well. I would recommend you don't read the report right now. He leads me to one of the table and helps me to sit down. Then he motions to one of the other men and orders him to bring us some water. Samantha takes the report, begins to read it, then says, is the doctor sure about everything contained in this report? Bill answers, yes, Ms. He was very sure. You can even see he signed his name to the bottom of the report and said he would be available as an expert witness if there is a trial. Bill opens the other cooling unit and says, we feel from the size. This one is Evelyn Donaldson. We will know better when the DNA and toxicology reports come back. I question, did you feel we needed to have toxicology reports done? Bill answers, no, Ms. The doctor insisted. There were needle marks on Evelyn's arms, so he was sure that she was on some sort of medication, possibly an illicit narcotic. My drunken foolishness earlier today is catching up with me, and in addition the smell in this room is wretched. I look at Samantha and say, Sam, I'm not feeling well, so I'm going to go lie down. Samantha comes over, takes my hand and says, Stacy, thank you for everything you've done for me. I would love to take care of you, but if we only have an hour to complete our report, we are barely going to have enough time. You go rest, and I will be up later after I clean the smell off me. Bill helps me into our living quarters, tucks me into bed, which reminds me of my grandmama. Turns out the light, and I fall immediately to sleep. Present, Mira, Ira, and Safia, on the hunt. Safia's plan of eliminating Zurika could cause problems with our mission, so I caution her. Safia, I am not sure it is wise to terminate Zurika. To do that would assuredly incur the wrath of my Ben. Safia laughs and challenges. Mira, I assumed that you would be pleased to have one fewer of Ben's lovers to contend with. I counter, Safia, my Ben informed me he never performed coitus with either of the terrible teenagers. Safia laughs and causes me intense concern when she speaks with intense sarcasm. Miranda, don't tell me you really believe that your Ben traveled alone with both Zurika and Yasmin and never once had sex with either of them. He is a virile man, and they were willing participants. Ira, please enlighten your sister. I look to my sister Ira in hopes that she will counter the terrible accusations, but I can tell from her eyes that she also believes the veracity of Safia's statements. I wait, and Ira finally says, my sister Mira, I hate burst your balloon, but there is validity in Safia's analysis. I have often wondered how he was able to resist succumbing to the typical male carnal temptations. Mira slumps to the ground and cries, no, it cannot be. My Ben resisted all my advances. I hate to cause my sister further anguish. However, she needs to remove her cranial carapace, her alimentary canal, so I state, and my sister Mira, I hate to say this, but your Ben is now betrothed to Jennifer Donaldson. Mira begins to cry in earnest, looks up at me, and informs us of her plans. Then I will terminate all of them. Safia says, now you're talking. Let's find both of the teenage bitches and make them pay. Mira looks at me and then says something I can't believe. Present, Yasmin and Zurika, on the run. Yasmin tells me her plan. I look at her and say, Yasmin, that is pure evil. How do you ever come up with these plans? Yasmin answers, Zurika, we have both had many evils inflicted on us. I am tired of receiving only, and I want payback. Present, Liz and Bernie, trip to Leadville. Sometimes being out of touch has its advantages. We turned off our mobile phones for the flight to Leadville and had a great time making plans about our house in Leadville. We land at the airport. I turn on my phone and see I have 15 missed calls from. I don't believe it. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.